It's Wednesday, 26th October 2022, and we are here with the Wednesday edition of the Camnet Breakfast Show, Governance, Policy, as well as Politics, with me, Patrick Soko, and we'll be with you up to the hour of 9. Just now, we're going to go straight into our very first segment we call the Health Corner with the Medical Women Association of Zambia, so that we can get abreast with what they've prepared for us in terms of healthy tips. Stay tuned.
Hello, good morning. My name is Dr. Sangire Chiluba. I'm from the Medical Women's Association of Zambia, and this week we're going to be discussing sickle cell disease. So sickle cell disease is an inherited condition that is relatively common in our setting. It's actually found in about 5% of the total world's population, and it's been found that approximately 300,000 babies are born with sickle cell every year, a majority of which are found in low-income countries such as our country, Zambia. Sickle cell is an inherited condition, and it results from inheritance of genes that are abnormal, and these genes code for hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is a protein that is found within our red blood cells and is responsible for transportation of oxygen throughout the body. Okay? And what happens in sickle cell disease is that the hemoglobin that is produced in these patients is abnormal. Therefore, in certain conditions, such as in conditions where the oxygen in the atmosphere is low, leading to hypoxia or reduced oxygen supply in the blood, it leads to abnormal shape in the red blood cells. They take up the shape that is sickle shape, okay? Hence the name being called sickle cell disease. Okay? So sickle cell disease, like I said, is relatively common, and it's mostly found in Africa as well as in the East Mediterranean region. It's also been associated with malaria. Some studies have shown that sickle cell developed in a bid to try and fight malaria, because it's seen that in patients that have the sickle cell trait, they tend to be more resistant to severe forms of malaria, but people that actually have sickle cell disease tend to have severe malaria. So in just the past few seconds, you've noted that I've used various terms, including sickle cell trait and sickle cell disease or sickle cell anemia. So sickle cell trait is a condition in which one individual has two genes, okay? So these two genes are coding for the sickled hemoglobin, which is the abnormal hemoglobin found in sickle cell disease, as well as the normal hemoglobin. So in which case, these patients tend to have milder forms of the disease, hence attempt to have the sickle cell trait. Then there are those that have sickle cell anemia, in which case both the genes that are coding for the hemoglobin both have the mutation, which is the sickle cell mutation. And when they have this mutation, they have the condition which is called sickle cell anemia. And the third term is sickle cell disease, in which case the patient again will have two abnormal genes coding for hemoglobin, but in this case, one of the genes is coding for sickle cell, okay, or the sickled hemoglobin, while the other gene will code for another form of abnormal hemoglobin. Okay? So of the two conditions, sickle cell anemia and sickle cell disease tends to be a bit more milder compared to sickle cell anemia, in which case both the mutations are of sickle cell. Okay? So sickle cell presents in various ways, but essentially it has triggers, okay, that will lead to the development of the signs and symptoms. Okay? So these triggers include things like reduced oxygen tension in the atmosphere, which would lead to hypoxia, or reduced oxygen in circulation. Other things include infections, which could be any form of infection. It could be a viral infection, a bacterial infection, and of course the third trigger is dehydration. Okay, so any dehydrated status could lead to symptoms of sickle cell. Remember, today we're discussing sickle cell disease, and it's a common inherited condition, and I'll see you on the next edition of this portion of the program.
Well, there you have it, quite an interesting discussion pertaining to sickle cell. I hope you managed to get one or two things regarding how sickle cell comes about and how it is managed. It's quite a good topic to understand, because we understand that sickle cell is also a quite a common disease in Zambia, and just like other countries. And just now we have to understand how our KWACHA is performing against other major convertibles, so we see if we are doing fine or doing bad, or at all we have maintained our good pace in terms of performing our currency performing better against other currencies. So let's see how it is. Well, it has been on an upward trajectory, as we see $1 is buying at 15 kwacha and 19 ngwe, and selling at 16 kwacha 21 ngwe. The Great British Pound is buying at 18 kwacha 19 ngwe, and selling at 18 kwacha 54 ngwe. And the Euro is buying at 15 kwacha 18 ngwe, and selling at 16 kwacha 11 ngwe. The South African Rand is buying at 87 ngwe, and selling at 0.80 ngwe, 87 ngwe rather, and selling at 0.88 ngwe. And the Zambian kwacha has been performing better than the Rand of late, and people have been there has been a lot of debate amongst economists as to why the kwacha has performed better compared to other currencies, especially pertaining to the Rand. The South African Rand and the kwacha have been like twins. They've been performing within the same range, but we're seeing the kwacha a little bit stronger, and the United States dollar there also shows it is gaining momentum, and that's putting pressure on the kwacha. I'm seeing there where it was trading at 15 in terms of both buying and selling, but now we are seeing that it is gone to 16 in terms of selling, 16 kwacha 21 ngwe, and this is an indication that the kwacha is on an upward trajectory, and that gives us a perspective regarding what we are expecting, especially by the month end. And this talking about month end should be within the course of this weekend, or that other week, when the Energy Regulation Board is expected to make an announcement on the fuel prices. And from the look of things, we may see a slight adjustment in the price of fuel. And as usual, when there is a price of when there's a price increase, we also see a trickle down to effect in that most prices of commodities also go up, and this has been a trend, and where prices, when they go up, they don't come down, even though they say what goes up must come down. But when it comes to prices and commodities in Zambia, when they go up, they stay up. So that's another issue which the United Party for National Development Administration has to ensure that it addresses. That we saw that previously they were engaging chain stores and other players to ensure that they pass the benefit to the consumers whenever there is a reduction in the fuel pump price, so that the consumers as well can benefit. But however, we have not seen much of that, because others have maintained the prices then and then, even if the Zambian kwacha is performing fine. And we understand that we import most of our commodities in South Africa. So if the kwacha is doing fine, and compared to the South African Rand, as well as kwacha performing better with the dollar, we should be able to see that translate into benefits to consumers. And that has been a discussion in the country, and the labor movement, the Zambia Congress of Trade Unions, recently hinted that government needed to make sure that the cost of living is reduced, because the buying power for workers has actually reduced, because we have witnessed a situation in Zambia where we have the cost of living increasing while wages remain static, and that has been a major concern for most Zambians. But we hope that the government, with the fundamentals that they are putting in place to manage inflation, as well as make sure that as we go towards the path to economic recovery, that aspect is taken into consideration to ensure that Zambians benefit from a good economic environment. And so far, when it comes to inflation, there has been quite a lot of work that has been done to put it into a single digit, but the desire is to put it within the ranges of 6 and 7 in order to make sure that the economy is performing better. There you have it. That was just, we were just looking at how the KWACHA is performing against other major convertibles. And just now, we are going to zoom in one of the interesting stories that we covered, and it's a follow-up story where police in Lusaka have opened a docket into a case of a 1-year-old child of Lusaka's Mutandabantu compound who was allegedly abducted for almost 4 hours and taken as collateral after his mother failed to settle a date of 430 kwacha. Tuesday afternoon, Kanyama Police Station recorded a statement from Leek and Mary Hampenda, the parents to the child. And this is a story that is a follow-up from the story that we aired on Sunday. So let's get to hear this, and we'll be back on the other side. Keep it on Camnet TV.
Going through a traumatized scenario last week where they witnessed their 1-year-old son taken as collateral by a woman they failed to pay a date of 430 kwacha. This couple of Lusaka's Mutandabantu compound located in Kanyama constituency can now breathe as they have received help from a well-wisher who was offered to clear off their date. Last week, the couple appeared on Camnet TV complaining how a woman by the name of Miss Lydia entered their home and went direct into their bedroom, took their 1-year-old son, who was sleeping at the time, as collateral. Mary Ampanda, the mother to the child, is said to have borrowed the money from the said lady in order to boost her cellular business, but failed to pay back on the agreed date, leading to the situation. The child was said to have been taken by the said woman from 05 hours to 12 hours.
When the police Tuesday kuma 05 lombwira manje atijeni ku police ndani za kupezani lenzo sakira ndrame singaenda ku police nilibeka ngono atiyendere pamoja ndatia ndani za kupezani bebe ndibanamba kunyozera ku shout sonde bena bona wasiya pado natamangira kuri bakuru banga.
Political analyst Dr. Alex Ngoma sent a 510 kwacha to the couple. They are now beholden by the gesture.
Zikomu kuri batumiza 500 kuti madamu ise ikongole ibwerere anyonga zikomu kuri bebe monga dalise maningi pari bebe zikomu maningi
mikira zikomu kuri amini wacho sandra mantandizira pankanya ishu ya mwana wanga veni napunzirapo kukongola nareka napunzirapo punziro imozi.
Meanwhile, Kanyama Police Station has opened a docket into the case as they have commenced their investigation on the same lady, Miss Lydia.
Apa since morning kari kuyembekezera but ba police waone akwati issue vaifakirako nzeru maningi so twenzoembekeza cheti ba madam babwere so kuchoka manja pasinizi bavamevi zako nkapo but mwamene vaonekera chabe waone akwati nkani vaiona tinkani funika ende mwamene funika yendere.
Miriam Kaimba reporting for Camnet TV News.
There you have it. Quite an interesting story there. Oof. We saw this story coming some time back, and we just had a repeat of it. Okay. We'll take a short break. We'll be back.
For immediate coverage of any breaking or latest news in Zambia and around the world on Camnet television, call the numbers on your screen. Camnet television, bringing to your screens fair news, impartial news, credible and reliable news all the time. Get the whole truth on Camnet World News. Camnet Television, not just another channel.
We apologize for that feedback that you were getting, rather it has been resolved. Now, proceeding with the program now, that's quite an interesting story that we saw that woman complaining about how she was unfairly treated in that her child was taken away. She felt traumatized. I understand matters pertaining to children can be so traumatizing. As a parent, you would not want your child to suffer any abuse, and we saw that story unfold, and it was as a result of a debt of a 450 kwacha. But interestingly enough, we saw that story attracted support because one of our sources, this is a common man, Dr. Alex Ngoma, opted to help them pay that debt and so that they can settle it and be able to live free. But however, something that has interested me in this story is the fact that the woman is repentant, and she says she is not going to get involved into matters of debt unnecessarily, and she has learned it the hard way, and she has learned a lesson. I think for me it's also a lesson to all of us when it comes to matters pertaining to debt. We have to make sure that we are able to borrow within our ability to pay back. So sometimes you borrow just because you have seen the money, and not because you have also weighed yourself to say, I'm able to pay back this money, or if I do this and that, I'll be able to raise enough money to pay back this debt. So, and that sometimes tends to cause problems, like we saw that couple. And I'm happy that they came out. These are stories that are rarely gotten, especially people don't want to talk about affairs probably that may bring them into disrepute, or probably that may cause an embarrassment to them. But it is a story they shared with Camnet TV to say this is what happened to us, and through Camnet TV, the nation has been informed regarding what happens, especially in these communities. So you may be comfortable thinking, oh, is well, but you know, others are not as comfortable as we may be. So we always have to be cognizant of that very fact, so that we ensure that as we talk about governance, development, we also look at the underprivileged citizens. Talking about Kanyama, just like other compounds, Mandevu, we gather quite a number of stories that are of human interest, and we see people how they struggle. So when we talk about CDF, when we talk about women empowerment, youth empowerment, all these things have to represent the interest of these people, because at the end of the day, one can only get into a debt because they don't have, and they think they can borrow something and be able to do a certain business and be able to pay back. So in case you want to join us by giving us your perspective on this story and other stories we'll be zooming in, you can equally give us a call on the number that is on your screen by engaging us. You can equally do the same on our social media page, Camnet TV Zambia, to be able to leave a comment there and just we get the conversation going. The topic of discussion, rather, is quite interesting. We are looking at the petitioning of the KWACHA and KABUSHI constituency elections. Isaac Mwanza, a governance activist who is also who's still part of the Young African Leaders Initiative, but for now we don't refer to him for in terms of that perspective. We talk about him as a governance activist. He says he's among people who want to defend the Zambian constitution, and we saw the just recent ended KABUSHI and KWACHA constituency by-elections, where we saw the UPND emerging victorious and seconded by independents in the two respective constituencies. That election has brought a lot of controversy, and the controversy is not going anytime soon, as we see this petition coming on board. It means we are still hovering around the KABUSHI and KWACHA constituency by elections that were recently held. As we are seeing the petition, we don't know what will be the outcome of the petition. And I remember that what one of my sources was saying, that election are just causing divisions in the country, in that throughout being in an election mood is not good for the country. And I think this comes to light because if you see what confusion the KABUSHI and KWACHA by-elections have brought upon this country, well, you agree with me that indeed we have to do a lot to work on our constitution as a country. Now, let me zoom in another interesting story from the province of from Central Province rather, and Kawe to be specific, the provincial town city. Let's look at the story where small-scale miners operating at the Black Mountain in Kawe, they have asked the government on behalf of Chinese firms, the buyer of the materials, for a waiver of what the Chinese firms owe Zambia Revenue Authority for non-tax compliance. Small-scale miners have also revealed that some named senior government officials, both at the provincial and at the district levels, are the ones who are pushing the ZRA to squeeze the Chinese because the youths in the district have denied them a share of the Black Mountain. Let's zoom in that story.
Small-scale miners operating at the Black Mountain in Kawe have asked government on behalf of Chinese firms, the buyers of their materials, mention that they are owing the government huge sums of money for non-tax remittance and compliance. These miners have revealed that some named senior government officials, both in the province and at the district level, are the ones who are pushing the ZRA to squeeze the Chinese because the youths in the district have denied them a share of the Black Mountain.
Yonso game morecha amali deza promo na tubesho amali deza promounce e bari yakumbali my interest motive yabo bari yakumbali kyamkula fuasa pakutifo tuchure ifwe. So please nemwati mitwala chura muri yonshira msangwevo tutwaikerezi natwa chefishinga tulanda wewe mema ni deza mama ya kuntanshi musajala yemkula mkuya mkukoma tutwala muweba.
The miners have called for the dismissal of the named government officials before things get out of hand.
Omwana wa munganda mumieno eure una urechipani panuka wewe ule wino omwana wenu wa munganda arazichinya lyonse pa office ngatwa abakateka ule omuntu turefwa change turefwa change bakateka twa papa elo tudire nsala afa bale turero mboko bati mutupangire ko langu nisime hotanga chakuchira ba Chinese taba mutupangire ko sime hotoko ko turetwara tureshishe fintu mwefu mutule kwa tomo kusungira abana n'abana.
These miners says within 1 year, the same named government officials have amassed themselves with wealth by reporting for Camnet TV News in Kawe.
There you have it, Sharon. I didn't know that we have the Black Mountain in Kawe.
When I think of Kawe, I just remember what people call it, a ghost town. But obviously, the town dwellers are trying by ensure that its glory is brought back. You know, not really what people call it as the ghost town.
You remind me of like Chimsmatic, Raphael band. If you say ghost town, you say, are you being sure?
Are you being sincere?
It's no longer a ghost town. We are running.
We are running it. Anyway, it's improving. We've seen a couple of shops from Lusaka, you know, stores that are going there. At that time, they only had this major chain store, the Raids, but now they have quite a number. They have boutiques there that were only known for being in Lusaka, but then they have them in Kabul. So at least that's a bit of life that is being added there. And we surely hope that probably by the next 5 years, it'll be a different story. However, thank you so much to the viewers for were demanding, the small-scale miners really, they were demanding that government gives them a waiver, at least, you know, on their operations. And that is Petronella there from Kabul, bringing us that very insightful story. But definitely, we'll follow up and see to it that something is done. Obviously, the minister of the provincial capital, is it, will have to issue a statement, and maybe the mayor will have to issue a statement on what exactly transpired there.
But if I look at the waivers they are asking for, isn't it that the ZRI should not charge him?
Of course, because according to them, Patrick, if you understood the story, is that some of the nationals, Chinese nationals or foreign nationals, let me not tag them, I may sound homophobic. The foreign nationals are allegedly being given those waivers,